Hello guys, welcome to the movie recap review. Happy watching.
I'll be in the
Madison Airlines are hot and tropical.
with pleasure.
This film is largely inspired by real events. The story begins in a college classroom with Gary Johnson, giving a lecture to his students about Nietzsche. One student interprets the philosopher's teachings as encouraging people to take risks and put themselves out there. Gary agrees with this interpretation but becomes disheartened when he overhears another student mocking the car he drives. This remark hits home for Gary, making him realize that he hasn't fully embraced the philosophy he's teaching. Gary narrates about his mild-mannered existence, sharing that he lives alone with his two cats, Ede and Ego. In his spare time, he assists the New Orleans Police Department in catching individuals who hire contract killers. The usual undercover cop, Jasper, has been suspended for assaulting teenagers, so officers Claudette and Phil assign Gary to take Jasper's place. Gary is tasked with posing as a hitman to ensnare their latest target. Though nervous and fearful for his life, Gary agrees to go undercover. Gary adopts the persona of Billy as he meets with the prospective client, Craig. To the amazement of Claudette and Phil, Gary convincingly transforms into Billy, displaying the demeanor of a deranged and psychotic hitman. Craig is completely fooled, and when he explicitly asks Billy to kill his intended target, Gary accepts the money. Moments later, Gary watches as the police arrive to arrest Craig, successfully concluding the sting operation. Gary continues to successfully apprehend more would-be killers by adopting various hitman personas tailored to each client. His undercover work leads to numerous arrests, and he often has to testify in court after the defendants accuse him of entrapment. While most are sentenced to jail, some, like a woman who tried to hire Gary to kill her husband, manage to avoid conviction either through forgiveness from their intended victims or due to insufficient evidence. This new aspect of Gary's life starts to impact his teaching as well. His students become noticeably more engaged and attentive, likely sensing a newfound confidence and intensity in their professor. Gary is later assigned a case involving Madison Figueroa Masters. He researches her on Facebook and discovers that she has no history prior to her marriage to her husband Ray and no criminal record. Under the alias Ron, Gary meets Madison in a diner. Madison confides in him that she wants Ray killed because she can no longer endure their marriage. Gary finds himself unexpectedly smitten with Madison. Instead of accepting her money to carry out the hit, he persuades her not to go through with it, warning her about the legal implications. Instead, he convinces her to use the money to start a new life. Claudette and Phil are dismayed by Gary's decision to let her go. Meanwhile, Jasper returns from his suspension, only to find that the sergeant prefers Gary's handling of the undercover work. Jasper learns that the police department wants to keep him out of sight to protect their reputation, which further frustrates him. Later on, Madison texts Ron and invites him to a dog adoption fair, even though Gary is a cat person. He meets her at the park, where she shares that she is divorcing Ray. Madison notices that Gary seems more like a people person than a menacing hitman, as he gets along well with the dogs and the children at the park. Gary and Madison go out later, and they eventually end up at her place, where they have romantic encounter. They continue their relationship in secret, with Gary not informing his superiors about it. While out on a date with Madison, Gary and she are spotted by a drunk Ray and his friend. Ray becomes infuriated upon seeing Madison with another man. When Ray threatens to strike Madison, Gary pulls a gun on him, causing Ray to back off. Shaken but undeterred, Gary and Madison head to get food. However, Gary grows anxious when he sees Jasper nearby. Jasper approaches them and greets Gary as an old coworker, without revealing the true nature of their connection to Madison. This encounter leaves Gary on edge, worried about the potential fallout. Gary is then called to play hitman again for a client calling himself Mike. To his shock, Mike turns out to be Ray, who wants Gary to kill Madison and her new boyfriend. Recognizing the gravity of the situation, Gary reveals his true identity to Ray, terrifying him and driving him out of the diner before Ray can incriminate himself further. Immediately afterward, Gary rushes to Madison's house to warn her that Ray has put a hit out on her. Sometime later at the station, the sergeant informs Gary that Ray has been found dead in what appears to be a drug deal gone wrong. Concerned, Gary goes to find Madison to tell her the news. Upon his arrival, Madison confesses that she shot and killed Ray after learning from Gary that Ray wanted her dead. Feeling the weight of his deceit, Gary admits that he was never a real hitman and that he had been lying to her all along. Madison, furious and feeling betrayed, orders him to leave immediately. The police name Madison as the prime suspect in Ray's murder after discovering that Ray had recently increased his life insurance policy by $1 million, with Madison as the sole beneficiary. They devise a plan to have Gary go in and get Madison to confess while wearing a wire, unaware that she already knows the truth about him. Gary goes to Madison's house again, this time using his phone to discreetly inform her that the police are listening. Together, they put on a convincing show, with Madison denying everything. Their performance successfully persuades the police, at least for the moment, to back off. When Gary arrives at Madison's house again, he discovers Jasper there, intending to blackmail them for a share of Ray's insurance policy. Madison offers Jasper a beer, and as he begins to outline his plan, he starts to weaken until he eventually passes out, unknowingly drugged by Madison. Feeling anxious about drugging a cop, Madison panics. Gary, thinking quickly, decides to stage Jasper's death as a suicide. Recognizing Jasper's reputation as a troublemaker, Gary suggests they make it look like an overdose, as Jasper is someone nobody will miss. As they prepare to stage the scene, Gary and Madison confess their love for each other. Together, they watch as Jasper takes his last breath and stops moving. Years later, Gary has expanded his class into a larger room, reflecting his growing popularity as a teacher. He is happily married to Madison, and together they have 2 children and 2 dogs. During a family moment, their daughter asks how they met. Gary and Madison share a knowing glance, choosing not to disclose the full story. Instead, they craft a charming narrative about a chance encounter at a cafe, emphasizing how they instantly connected and how their lives changed for the better from that moment onward. The film closes with a touching dedication to the real Gary Johnson, who passed away in 2022. It highlights his multifaceted life, honoring him as a beloved college professor, a courageous war veteran, an animal-loving Buddhist, and notably, emphasizing that he never committed any murders. This tribute serves as a reminder of Gary's remarkable life and the impact he had on those around him, leaving behind a legacy of kindness, compassion, and integrity.
And that's the end of the story. I hope you liked it. Comment down below what movies do you like us to recap next. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Until next time.